Hi everyone, today let's talk about Tesla stock popping after deliveries for the semi program. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So Tesla stock popped after the company revealed new details on its semi-truck deliveries. They say here they still remain on track to deliver semi-trucks by 2026, and they offered some more details on range and payload for the truck. They're targeting 50,000 units by 2026, and they currently have PepsiCo piloting this program, and they will be receiving an additional 50 trucks, and they are currently operating 35 trucks. And you can see on this news Tesla went up quite a bit, so big move here for Tesla. Current range is approximately 500 miles and the range being 2,300 pounds, and that is for the long range. The standard range would be 300 miles at 20,000 pounds, and of course they are still more agile than the traditional semi truck. Moving over to the fear and greed index, you can see we finished at a 63. The last 2 days we were at a 64. Still in greed, not really going too much higher, generally flat, maybe a slight tick higher. Looking at strength, still hovering in fear. Put call ratio did start to roll up a little bit, kind of interesting there. Volatility cratering to new lows. And then looking at bonds, safe haven demand still sitting in extreme greed while junk bonds hover in neutral. Pretty interesting to see that flip over the last couple of weeks. Moving over to earnings, you can see we had lows in AutoZone here today. They did fine. AutoZone missed on the top line a little bit, but otherwise good. And then tomorrow, don't forget, NVIDIA holdings after hours, absolutely massive. Target here as well. TJ Maxx, fairly interesting. And then for Thursday, you have Intuit in the afternoon, Medtronic in the morning, Autodesk at some point, Ross, Dollar Tree. So a couple of retailers there on Thursday. Moving over to Max Pain for the end of the week, we're up to almost 600,000 options. Put call ratio going even lower. Stock really didn't move at all. Max Pain just a few points lower at 525. So put wall 525, call wall 530. We're kind of stuck in there for now. Top of the puts would be just a couple of dollars higher, but it doesn't seem like we're headed anywhere. I think we're probably going to finish just about where we're at unless we see a major move from NVIDIA tomorrow. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps here on the hourly and the daily, you can see we did establish a higher low at that 55 EMA on the hourly chart that continues to hold, so structure is still bullish. Ran into resistance at 531.47, same level that we've hit 3 times now. If we get above that, should be off to the races. Seems like we're probably going to. Momentum still fading here. This might be one of those cases where we see momentum fade to 0 while price is still going higher, and then once it flips to bearish, then we're going to see a move down. But right now, everything still looks good. Just a little bit of concern there with momentum. You can also see RSI in overbought conditions. Again, this direction is going to be dependent on NVIDIA tomorrow, but right now it looks like a bullish setup. Moving over to the Tasty charts, you can see we're still in that same region, still overbought there. 530.11 is your upper band. Finished around 531.33, so definitely overbought. You can actually see that first step down on the volume-weighted MACD, so that's a little bit concerning. 4-hour chart, you can see ATRs are starting to pull in a little bit. Upper ATR there is at 533, but we're really getting stuck at that first ATR band, which again is a little bit concerning. So we're starting to lose that momentum to the upside. You can also see bearish momentum on that 4-hour chart. And then looking at the hourly, straight sideways chop. We did finish right at these previous highs like we talked about. It is bullish conditions, 529.23, but really this is sideways chop, and we need to see that breakout if we're going to make some higher highs. Moving over to the NASDAQ, very similar thesis here. You can see we threw a wick down to that 55 EMA, ended up closing on the session highs up around 455.76. You can see we're above this trend line here on the daily chart, but on the hourly chart we are right at that level, so want to see it break from there and push higher if it's going to do it. Otherwise, we're at a zone of resistance. Again, NVIDIA is going to have a major effect tomorrow, but right now everything still looks a little bit bullish. Looking at the Tasty charts, you can see that same setup. Upper ATR here on the daily chart sitting at 454.57, and again you can see that volume weighted MACD is stepping to bearish, not great. Everything is still bullish on the technicals, but just starting to see some of those cracks coming through. And then you can see it here, a 4-hour chart starting to roll in on those ATRs. That upper level is 457.44. And you can actually see we're below that second ATR here. That is at 456.12. So we did finish below that as well. Bearish momentum on the 4-hour. And then looking at that hourly chart again, this one looks a little bit more bullish. You can see those ATRs trending in the upward direction a little bit better than the SPY. You can also see that massive volume coming through on that 2 o'clock candle. So that definitely looked bullish going into tomorrow's session. Typically, you don't see bullish candles like that unless there's going to be some form of continuation, in my opinion. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, you can see the Russell was down 0.1, the Dow was up 0.17. You can see both of these are basically flat in the sideways consolidation. Did get back above 208.22 on a closing basis. We closed below it here on Friday. Monday we got back above it. We did hold barely above it here today, but momentum fading for sure on both of these. RSI is starting to pull back. Seems like this consolidation might start to break lower, whereas the SPY and the NASDAQ look a little bit more bullish. The Russell and the Dow seem to be a little bit more bearish, at least here in the short term. Moving over to stocks that moved here today, we got Dollar General and Citigroup. You can see both of these are in pretty decent uptrends, finding a base of support here on Dollar General, looking to push higher. Citigroup has been basically straight up over the past couple of months, and it looks like it's pushing that 76.94 level. Respective 3.46% and 2.5%, pretty solid moves. And it seems like both of these have a little bit more upside in them. Dollar General looks a little bit earlier in their trend. Citigroup probably starting to culminate here in that 67 to 73 area. Moving over to the Mag 7, you can see we continue to trend towards that upper resistance around 377. Momentum still fading, but RSI still looks strong. We're at a higher high at this point. This is a new high close for the Mag 7. Obviously, NVIDIA is going to have a huge impact, but likely to head higher based on current trends, in my opinion. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, you can see Apple broke out from this trend line up 0.69%, next level 193.96, probably going to get there. And then you can see Tesla, massive move. We already talked about it in the first article, 6.66%. Quite coincidental there for Tesla at 666. And then looking for that next level, 188.50 is your resistance. Momentum getting a huge pop, RSI getting a huge pop. We talked about this structure being bullish, and then you got a huge catalyst, kind of coincidental there potentially. If that level breaks here, then you should be looking for 197.75. So 177.70 broke, almost went to the next level, above that 197.75. Moving over to Microsoft and NVIDIA, you got Microsoft hitting a new all-time high on that wick. The high of the day was 432.97. And you can see NVIDIA closing up really close to its high here. Again, looking like it's set up for a move higher. If this breaks here, we're going to be in price discovery with some trend resistance all the way up in the 1100s. Microsoft not nearly as exciting, potentially heading up to that 440 area. We talked about that before. This continues to look very strong. Momentum is strong. RSI looks very good. And then we had that catalyst from yesterday. This looks like it's set to go up into that next trend resistance. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, you can see staples did rally a little bit, 0.59. Discretionaries, 0.64. Still right in that same zone though. It did break to VWAP, did get a bounce from that Tesla news, so both of these had a little bit of a bullish day. To me, staples still looks a little bit more bullish. You can see this trend is pretty clear, whereas discretionaries kind of grinding lower, still holding some support, but certainly not swinging to bullish quite yet. Risk off still seems like the predominant trend, and until we see this break above that 180.10 level here on discretionaries, I don't think that's going to change. Moving over to oil and gas and technology, following up from yesterday's video. Technology continues to build here. Momentum's a little bit choppy, but we did get a higher high, so that's good. And then oil and gas got a bit of a dip low here. Momentum is still swinging to bullish. The structure is still kind of intact. I think if this 9 EMA here at 151.59 breaks, that this is probably going to roll to bearish. I still really like this setup, and I think it is going to work still, but that is the stop loss right now. You can see it here, right in that 151.59 area. So right now, technology still looking good, as you would suspect. Oil and gas, I think it's got some more momentum in it. It's just taken a while to do it. Moving over to oil and silver, you can see oil still in this consolidation. It did wick a low, did catch a bounce, waiting to see where this resolves. Could absolutely go in either direction at this point. And then you can see silver did have a bullish day, but it is stuck in this trend. If it breaks out from there, that could absolutely push to the next one, around $30 or even higher, up around 32 potentially, but it is super overbought. Momentum is super bullish, and you can see last time we hit this trend, we did pull back substantially. And if we did see a pullback like that, it would not shock me if this pushed back down to that 27, maybe even 26.50 zone. Moving over to breadth, 20 and 50-day breadth, you can see momentum on these continues to roll to bearish. 20-day very close to getting into actual bearish conditions. It's rolling towards it, but it is almost there. 50-day is not far behind. If that happens, this is probably going to break down more substantially. Remember, this is the S&P 500, so that doesn't mean that the NASDAQ can't go higher, even if this breadth is rolling pulling to the downside a little bit, but I think that's why we're seeing hesitancy in the S&Ps. We're kind of in that topping pattern. We're seeing breadth pull back, and NVIDIA could give us that culmination top, and then we see this breadth start to take over as we see markets roll to the downside. Moving over to the dollar here on the hourly and the daily, you can see hourly still continues to grind higher, just barely, very slightly positive on the day. Momentum continuing to roll to bullish a little bit. We're hanging out above those shorter term EMAs on the hourly chart, so grinding higher, not showing a ton of strength. But if it does continue to do this, we could start to see a little bit of a bigger upswing, which obviously would be bearish for equities. So watching this closely here on the dollar, not super convincing yet, but it is starting to show some structure. Moving over to the 2-year and the 10-year, you can see we did pull back finally here today. It looked very strong over the last 3 days, didn't give any clear direction, but now you can see this is really not a clear directional play. Sideways choppy action after a dip low. Could be establishing a lower high here. 10-year similarly could be a lower high here, or we're starting to get into a more normalized price. Either way, yields are not really driving price right now in my opinion. Moving over to bonds, you can see JNK still in the middle of this range, not going anywhere. TLT did catch a bounce off that 9 EMA, but momentum is fading. RSI did catch a little bit of a bounce there. If this breaks the trend, then we could be looking for some more upside potentially, but right now this is still a downtrend. Moving over to the VIX and the MOVE index, you can see the MOVE index is cratering, continues to go to new lows after taking out this previous low here. And then looking at the VIX, actually got a new low here today as well, so we are officially back at the lows from mid-December. Might actually touch the level 1177. That does go back a long ways here. Have to zoom all the way out back to December of 2019 until we saw those lows before. So it seems like we're there, just about at that level. The question is what happens next and how long is it going to take before we start to see a little bit of a spike. You can see momentum there continuing to roll just a little bit towards the bull side, but that can take a while just like we saw here. Continues to grind lower, hover in this zone before we start to see that take off. So still being patient, everything still looks a little bit bullish for equities. Moving over to my accounts, I made a few $100s. All of my Q's positions continue to pay, so that's doing fine. I still have this 456 call for tomorrow. I'm not sure I'm going to leave that on depending on how we see price action going during the day. I just feel like NVIDIA is going to push markets higher pretty powerfully. The AI boom is still on and it just seems like it's going to go higher in my opinion. Otherwise, looking at the IWM, I rolled my 209 down to 208 for tomorrow, made a few dollars there. Still sitting on this XOP position. It's in a negative position now. Still being patient there. I want to see it hold up and push higher. Like I said, 150 is kind of that zone where I really need it to hold, otherwise my thesis is broken. Otherwise, moderately bullish, and I'll probably take off some risk as we go into that NVIDIA earnings tomorrow. Let me know down in the comments section what you think of the Tesla Semi. Is that going to be a big driver for them, and will it drive sales and revenues back into growth for Tesla, or is it just another blip higher and we're going to see it sell off again? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.